It's September, that means fall's right around the corner. And I'm back with a list of plants that you need to be planting this month if you want to have an amazing fall and winter harvest. Let's get to it. I know the garden looks a little empty right now. That's just because I'm prepping for my fall garden. If you don't know how to prep your garden for the fall planting, make sure you check out this video up here. First thing that we can plant in our garden in the month of September is a perennial that will keep producing year after year, and that is artichokes. Artichokes grow everywhere, even in the colder climates up north, but down here in Zone 9, there's something that I love to plant in my garden. All you need to do is provide a lot of space and some fertile soil, and each one of these seeds will produce a minimum of 3 artichokes per plant. Look, and even if you don't like artichokes, don't worry. Allow it to go to flower and the bees and other pollinators will thank you. Next on the list, arugula. This green is something that you can grow year-round down here in Zone 9. A few seeds in your garden planted every few weeks will make sure that you're harvesting leafy greens throughout the fall and even throughout the winter. It's a cold hardy crop that goes extremely well in all of the salads that you're going to be eating and harvesting straight from your garden this fall. Next, we have basil. While it's too late to plant basil from seed, what you can plant is something like this. Basil transplants or basil cuts that you take from your own basil plants. Even if you're not the biggest fan of basil, I guarantee you that all of the pollinators in your garden are. So let's do something for the pollinators. Plant the basil. Even if you're not going to eat it, just let it go to flower like you see here. Next up, we have beans. I'm talking about bush beans or pole beans. If you plan on growing pole beans, make sure you have a trellis set up and ready for the beans before you start planting them. You could use something like a teepee that you make by securing 3 pieces of wood together with string, or you could use any sort of trellis that you have. Whatever you decide to use, just make sure that it's tall because pole beans can get at least 6 feet tall. Down here in Zone 9, September is when fall really starts, and fall time means it's time to plant your root crops. So the next thing that you can plant in your garden this month are beets. And the best part about growing beets at home is that you don't just have to plant the boring red variety that you see in the grocery store. You can plant my favorite variety, which are actually the golden beet. And here's a fun fact. I know that red beets stain your clothes and stain your hands. Did you know that golden beets don't? And since we're talking about root crops, not only can you plant beets, we can also grow things like carrots and turnips. Here's a tip for growing your carrots. Make sure that you keep the soil moist until the seedlings germinate. And be patient because it can take up to 2 weeks for your carrot seeds to germinate. A fall garden is not complete without your leafy greens. As a matter of fact, this is the time of year when you should be harvesting a salad from your garden every day. And in order to do that, we need to make sure we have a plethora of leafy greens growing in our garden. So, in the month of September, we can plant things like kale. My favorite variety of kale to grow is actually the dino kale. Why? Because it lasts in my garden from September when I plant it all the way up until the summer temperatures get to about 100 degrees. The next type of green that you can plant in your garden this month are things like mustard green. The mustard greens that I'm growing this year are tender greens. It's a Japanese variety that tastes more like spinach than it does mustard green. It's a leafy green that's milder than other varieties, and it's quick to grow and quick to mature, and that's something that I love down here in my fall gardens. Another staple in most southern gardens is collard greens. While I'm not the biggest fan of collard greens, I make sure to grow a couple of bunches every single year. This is an easy leafy green that any gardener can grow regardless of the amount of space that you have in your garden. Another leafy green that you can add to your garden this month is lettuce. I've been waiting a long time to be able to plant lettuce again, so I'm really looking forward to getting it planted this month. Lettuce is another crop that I practice succession planting with. I will plant lettuce in my garden every 2 weeks from September all the way until November. So now that we've talked about the leafy greens that you can grow in your garden in the month of September, let's talk about another staple in all fall gardens, and that is cole crops. So in the month of September, you can plant crops like broccoli, cauliflower, and even cabbage. This year, I'm focusing on growing a variety of cabbage called the Napa cabbage. Why? Because I want to try making my own kimchi for the first time. September is the last month that we're able to plant summer squash in our garden, so that's what I'm gonna do now. If your summer crop was decimated by the SVB, fall time is the perfect time to grow them. You won't have to deal with that squash vine borer, and you should get your best harvest. I'm growing a few different summer squash varieties in my fall garden, but the one I'm looking forward to the most is this one right here, the Romanesco. And since fall time is a perfect time to plant herbs, that means we need to be starting things like parsley, whether we're growing the curled leaf parsley or the flat leaf parsley. Other herbs that we can plant in our garden this month include things like rosemary, thyme, oregano, chives, dill, just to name a few. Let's not forget, fall garden means herb garden. If you live down here in Zone 9 and you want to grow one of my favorite greens, Brussels sprouts, you need to make sure that you give yourself a lot of time. These things can take up to 4 months to produce a stalk of Brussels. So, September is the month to seed your Brussels sprouts. Or plant transplants into your garden that you started last month. Also in the month of September, we can start our onion seeds. Another thing that you can plant in the month of September is this, horseradish. Now look, this piece of horseradish root is probably 2 years old. I forgot I even had it. I hid it from myself. September is the ideal month to grow horseradish. Now here's a tip. Don't plant horseradish directly into your garden because it's gonna spread and take over everything. Instead, grow it in a container. And that's it for what to plant this month, September, down here in Zone 9. Look, it's been extremely hot summer, so now that temperatures are starting to cool off, it's time to get active in the garden again. Have a plan, because without a plan, you won't have a productive garden. Until next month, or until the next video, you know what to do. Get your hands in the dirt and just grow it.